got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State. There's something that doesn't feel right. Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team all Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. Well, hi, everybody, and welcome back to Buckeye Breakdown, our instant analysis postgame show after Ohio State starts the season with a second consecutive victory. They got Arkansas State today by a final score 45-12. I'm Brendan Gulick. This is Andrew Lind. Ohio State has wrapped up its press conferences, and we've got a little bit of time to just digest our normal quick thoughts, and that's what the purpose of this show is, to give you our instant reaction to what we saw today. Andrew, I think for a lot of folks, there were happy moments that the offense seemed to look like what people expect it to look like. There were some really good things on defense. There were some really frustrating moments, and I think everybody is trying to digest how to feel about what they saw today.
Yeah, I mean, on one hand, to beat Arkansas State, 45-12, like that's kind of what we expected from them. And, to see Emeka Egbuka step up and, be a focal part of the offense, and as well as obviously Marvin Harrison today should have had 4 touchdown receptions, only had 3. I think that was a bad call. I was right there.
Yeah.
If you'll take a look at our photo gallery later today, you'll see what the photo of that exact moment. But yeah, I think that, from the offensive standpoint, it was nice to see, them kind of take that step and be that, passing attack that we've kind of come to expect. But then I think that the frustrating part that you were talking about is it still seems like there's those, maybe mindless penalties or just careless penalties that, that Ryan Day kind of talks about with like discipline this week. And I think that those are things that they still need to correct.
I don't want to be recklessly speculating about things, so I'll try to stay away from that. But you can't help but wonder if there are instances where guys aren't locked in because of whatever else is going on. There's no excuse for personal foul penalties. The Buckeyes had 4 of them last week. They had 2 more today. Now, one of them on Xavier Johnson, Ohio State head coach Ryan Day certainly went to bat for Xavier. I mean, he was speaking with the official. He was very demonstrative. Couldn't really tell if it was an animated and mad conversation as much as it was like, hey, what else was he supposed to do? Trying to say this is where Xavier was. The other personal foul penalty came on the walk back to the locker room. Teron Vincent got into it with an offensive lineman. I have to go back and watch a tape. I don't think Vincent played in the second half. At least I don't remember seeing him there. Ohio State on their second defensive series forced a 3 and out and returned a punt for a touchdown that had both an illegal block and a 15-yard penalty for hurdling the shield for the punter. And then there were 2 defensive pass interference plays that were both the right call. I mean, it was just like, man, if you could stop shooting yourself in the foot, this could look really good. Instead, you walk away and say, okay, good game.
Well, on the other hand, though, to think that they only gave up 12 points, didn't let Arkansas State in the end zone, like, from a statistical standpoint, like it seems like that was what was expected. The point total, being able to hold them to that, like that seems like a good defensive effort. But yeah, to kind of speak to what you were talking about, I think it kind of is like a matter of maybe, last week they got out for Notre Dame. This week, they're 44.5 point favorites. And I think that maybe your mindset isn't there all the time. And, there's those little things that add up. And then, I mean, it was cool to see, Emeka have the punt return, for a touchdown. It would have been the first since 2014 when Jalen Marshall did it against Indiana. But, to then have the block in the back, to have Taraji Mitchell jump over the shield, like those are just mistakes that you can't really afford, in games that are going to be closer.
I don't want to be overly negative because there were so many things today that made you feel like, okay, this is what we thought we were going to see from this offense. CJ Stroud, for the second straight week, didn't turn the football over, had outstanding poise in the pocket, knew when it was time to leave, but hung in there when there was some pressure at times. He threw some really good passes deep down the field. He told us after the game today that he was trying to be a little bit better in the intermediary routes, but I still didn't think he was sloppy with the ball. When you don't turn it over, you largely can't complain about the output. The offense scored a bunch of touchdowns. Marvin Harrison Jr. had almost 200 receiving yards. They ran the ball effectively again. Like there were a lot of good things.
Yeah.
It's just kind of hard to walk away from this game feeling really good because there's some stuff that you can control that this team hasn't controlled for the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I think that there were a lot of plays today that maybe they made it easy for him. With the crossing routes, Marvin coming across the middle, and getting him the ball in space. And I think that maybe that's something that they didn't have as much against Notre Dame. So I think that that's a positive thing to get that in there. But yeah, there was moments where it seemed like maybe they were working a little bit harder than they should have offensively. I know that they got stopped on one drive. Mayan had like a 1 yard run, and then they tried to throw it to him in the flat, and it was incomplete. And it was just like there was a little bit of puzzle. I was a little puzzled on the sideline when that happened, because it was like they know that they have more talent than Arkansas State. So I think that it was just a matter of maybe being in their head a little too much on those things.
So again, positive things on the defensive side. The Red Wolves had 1 rushing yard in the first quarter, and I think they only had 26 or 27 at halftime. For the game, they carried it 1.6 yards per carry. That's terrific. I think by the end of the game, because of a couple of bigger plays late, Arkansas State ended up averaging 3.6 yards per play. That's not bad, but it's not where Ohio State wants it. 5 for 20 on third downs, the Red Wolves were, and 4 of those 5 conversions were after the game was already out of hand. At one point it was like 1 for 14 or something like that. So, the defense was doing its job to get off the field on third downs, which was great. I thought Arkansas State couldn't move the ball between the tackles with any regularity all game, but I credit their offensive staff and their play calling because they were getting the ball to the perimeter quickly. And, we said it throughout the week, man, they've got athletes. If you give them space, they're going to make some plays. And, they were a competent, solid football team. They just didn't have the talent the Buckeyes have.
Well, and I think that, a lot of those yards that you mentioned toward the end were with, second, third team players. There was a lot of freshmen in there at the end. I know Mari Abor, Hero Canoe, they were all in there, and I think that, just getting them that experience was good, even if, Arkansas State did move the ball down the field at the end there. And then obviously they did stop them and force a punt, but then the punt was muffed and recovered by Arkansas State. So yeah, it's just those little things that you had mentioned, but overall, I think especially in the interior of the defense, they continue to step up. Mike Hall continues to be, a player that, Ryan Day even kind of said it today that they didn't expect him to be that player. And I think, if he can come in and have that impact in every single game, and obviously we have to see what happens with, his injury, because he did come out of the game. But, I think that he is one of those players who can be such a difference maker for them.
Thankfully, it appears that Mike Hall's okay. I'm not a doctor. I don't want to diagnose what happened, but from what we could tell, he was obviously laying on his back and frustrated. You knew right away it was an upper body injury. Hall ran off the field walked off the field with a couple of athletic trainers, and they took his shoulder pads off, and it looked like they were working on his left shoulder, collarbone, neck, pec, I don't know, something in this area, and it didn't seem like he was grimacing much when they were trying to see, okay, I'm going to hold your arms here. Can you push out? Can you push in? Do you have extension? If he were in obvious pain, you could have seen it on his face, and he didn't appear to be, overly hurt. So beyond that, I don't know what happened, and I don't like speculating on injuries. But Ryan Day said afterward that it didn't seem like it was a big deal. So hopefully, fingers crossed, you'll see him back out there next weekend.
Yeah, and then kind of after that happened, one thing that I was surprised about was just that the offense, the first team offense was still in there at the beginning of the fourth quarter. I know they had one drive before, Kyle McCord came in. They started rotating the receivers and those kind of things. But yeah, I guess on one hand, you want to get those reps for, and just kind of the comfortability for CJ with the other receivers in case Jackson has to be out or Julian has to be out for a long, period of time, which, they, based upon everything we know and seeing them, warm up before the game and stuff, maybe that shouldn't be but a week or two. But at the same time, they were winning. The game was in hand. It was 30 points. I was kind of surprised to see the offense out there at that point.
So I think there were probably a lot of people that hoped they would see the second group of offensive players earlier in the game, myself included. You could certainly envision a scenario where the game was enough out of hand in the first half that maybe the first team guys go out and play the first set in the third quarter and then turn it over to the second group of guys, and that didn't quite happen. I think there's a chance it could have happened if the Buckeyes wouldn't have just totally let an opportunity slip through their hands after I thought Mike Hall made maybe the biggest play of the game, scoring plays aside, when Arkansas State from Ohio State's 40-yard line had it on 4th and 1, decided to go for it, and Hall comes up with a huge play, and he sacks Blackman for an 8-yard loss. There's 51 seconds left in the half. Ohio State's got 2 timeouts and the ball at their own 48-yard line. I mean, you know, if you're betting on that, you bet every time that they would come away with points. Instead, they went 3 and out, and that was obviously pretty frustrating. That drive lasted something like 20 seconds. Perhaps if they would have scored there and then opened the second half with a scoring drive right away, maybe you would have seen that trigger something.
That makes sense. And I think that, you know, just being in that situation, you want to, you know, that's real live game, you know, kind of practice in that situation. You know, if it was a tie game, for example, and, you know, they needed to get down the field in 51 seconds or whatever, like, you know, that was disappointing from their standpoint to sit there and, you know, go 3 and out, like you mentioned. And, you know, that was a really good chance for them to put the game out of reach. And at that point, and then, you know, for them not to be able to do that, like, obviously maybe that's what it was that, you know, Ryan Day and the rest of the offensive coaches just decided, you know what, we're going to, you know, kind of fix these things.
Unsung hero of the day. I'm not sure how much credit he's getting, at least instantly, until people go back and watch a tape. I thought G. Scott played awesome, especially in the first half. His block sprung Travion Henderson for a touchdown run. He made another really good play in the kind of late in the third quarter. You know, he and Mitch Rossi clearly are second fiddle to Cade Stover right now. But I was impressed with what I saw from G today when he got on the field. Really like that.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note the block because he came here as a wide receiver, has put on a lot of weight, and you know that's kind of been the thing that's keeping him from the field at this point. And for him to go out and do that, and then just play you know, an instrumental role later in the game, that's why you saw him in as long as he was, and you know I imagine that he'll continue to get that playing time because of that.
How about from just a general quarterback perspective, did you see what you wanted to see from CJ today?
I mean, yeah, just because like I didn't really expect anything, you know, different than what he did. I mean, it's just a matter of, you know, him going out there, getting comfortable with the other wide receivers and stuff. And I think that, you know, I don't expect him to go out there and throw for 500 yards and 6 touchdowns in a game that they're not going to need him to. Like, I just think that where he is as a quarterback at this point in time, like, you know, you just want to get him the reps and get him the work and then just say, hey, we're going to, you know, really save all that you can do for those games that actually matter.
Obviously, his ability to put some touch on a ball, a deep ball down the field, which we saw a couple times, it's special. He's really, really talented. My favorite throws from Stroud today were actually the ones that were vertically only 5 yards, 6 yards, but he would, for example, stand on the right hash where the pocket started and have to throw an out route to the left-hand side of the field, and he was doing it with some real zip, and he was putting it in a pinpoint spot. Those are pro football throws. Those are the kinds of throws scouts look at and say, okay, this guy has the arm strength to be able to drive the ball across the field, because in college – the hashes are a lot wider than they are in the NFL. Yeah. So those throws in the NFL happen a little bit more regularly. I just, when I see that kind of stuff from CJ early in the year, you know what you saw from him last year. You saw the growth and development, but those little things, and then for the second straight week, not turning the ball over is, you know, to me shows continued maturity from him.
Yeah, and I mean, I know a lot of fans, you know, continue to kind of harp on this, but like, I think that the one thing that I really would like to see him do, maybe, you know, is really kind of look to run the ball. And it doesn't have to be a situation where it's like, you know, where they're running design plays for him or anything like that. But I do think that there are opportunities for him to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to take these 5, 6, 7 yards because I can do it and not just constantly look down the field. And I think that that's just, you know, maybe one thing, especially in these games, that I'd like to see him maybe do differently. But yeah, I mean, I watched the tape last week, and there was a moment in the Notre Dame game where I think that he could have like if he was Braxton Miller, he would have had a 40-yard touchdown run in that game.
I wonder what people's reaction was the one time today that he did tuck it and run and kind of got smoked as he went out of bounds. There were a lot of boos in the stadium. People thought that it was a late head out of bounds. I actually thought it was the right call. I thought they hit him before he went out. But either way, I guess given the two extremes, I'd rather him not get touched than, than take off, run out of bounds, and get hit.
It kind of reminds me, though, if you think back to when Dwayne Haskins was setting all those records in 2018, there was a game that he needed to run. And it was Maryland. And if he doesn't run, and I think he had 3 touchdowns on the ground that game, if he didn't develop into that quarterback over the course of the year like he did, they're not going to win that game. So I think that might be something, and I guess I'm kind of nitpicking at this point because it's hard to
understand.
But I think that's just something that in these games, I think that they have the opportunity to get him more comfortable with it, and you don't really see that happen.
Ohio State fans have a little PTSD from that Maryland game. That was uncomfortably close, and you could argue Maryland maybe wasn't the lesser of the two teams that day, but a day the Buckeyes won, just like they did today, 45-12. The only other thing I want to mention today when we talk about special teams, I really wish Chip Trainum would have had a chance to actually return a kick, because that would have been fun. I really want to see the ball in his hands. I said, I think on Tuesday on our morning podcast that I thought this week the Buckeyes were going to return a kick or a punt for a touchdown, because what I saw from Arkansas State's special teams last week was not particularly impressive, and I just kind of had a gut feeling it could happen. It did, but it happened because of an illegal block, so I'm not gonna hang my head on that one. Without that bad block, it probably wouldn't have happened. But still, there were some good moments. There were also some really frustrating moments, and again, I just feel like for a team that, gosh, I'm trying really hard to be good here. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of expectations around a group that probably, as soon as they got back to the locker room, they're celebrating with their buddies. They probably checked their phones and realized that Alabama snuck by Texas, right? And this team's 2-0, and they got to win over a top 5 ranked team, and they're feeling pretty good about themselves because they've played fairly well in these first couple games. I just hope they can have the focus and the discipline not to shoot themselves in the foot, because if they were playing a team better than Arkansas State today, this game certainly could have been more competitive. And if they would have played if they would have played last week like they played today, I don't know that they would have beaten Notre Dame. They could have, but I don't know that they definitely would have.
Well, I think, we had the Texas-Alabama game in here in the media room after the game. And, it was kind of one of those things when you saw just Alabama get the ball back, you knew that they were going to go down and score and kick the go-ahead field goal. And I think that, that just kind of speaks to their just discipline and knowing that they're going to win the game and those kind of things. So I do think that, today is a little bit disappointing from the standpoint of just, maybe an attitude and having, that business-like attitude when coming into this game, and just knowing that you have to be good in all 3 phases throughout the game, no matter your opponent. And I think that, like you had mentioned, if the shoe is on the other foot and they're playing Alabama, they don't win that game.
No.
So I think that it's just a matter of using these games as an example and saying, we're going to get better. We're going to be more disciplined, and just using that as a blueprint moving forward.
Just trying to give you our balanced, unbiased opinion. I certainly recognize good play when we see it, and there were some moments today. C.J. Stroud's touchdown pass at the end of the third quarter to Marvin Harrison was bananas. That is a wicked good throw, an incredible catch. That is the lead off on Marvin Harrison Jr.'s highlight reel for sure. But there's a standard of excellence around here, and if they want to win a national championship, which they don't have to do in week 2, by the way, they're allowed to get better as the season goes along. They have to, because this current version of what we've seen through 2 games from Ohio State is very, very good, but I don't think it's quite good enough through 2 games from what we've seen to just expect that this team is going to go win the Big Ten and go, make a serious run at a national championship. They've got to be cleaner. They've got the talent to do it. Mm-hmm. They've proven they fixed the defense, which is the thing that held them back. I love the chemistry today between Stroud and the receivers that maybe last week was a little bit rough at times, but there was something today that caught my attention. They were not as clinical as I thought they could be. And I wholeheartedly expect this coaching staff this week to preach that and say, look, you got one more opportunity against a non-conference opponent to go out there and hammer somebody. And you got to go prove that you can do it, because there's a lot of people talking about how good this team is. They got to block the noise out and not let themselves become their own worst enemy.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess I really want to point out just, like you said, we obviously know that this team is talented. We'll praise them when they do great things and all that. To me, it just kind of felt like that, we beat Notre Dame last week kind of thing. Let's, kind of just sleepwalk through this because we know what we are and, how good we can be. But, we're playing a lesser opponent and we don't have to be at that level. So, yeah, I think, next week, I think you'll see a more focused team, because they're going to get in the film room tomorrow and say, you know what, these are the mistakes we made, and we're going to improve upon those things. And I think that, our post-game, incident analysis after the game next week, we'll be singing a different tune, because I think that they're going to really focus on that.
I think so too, because if you caught Ryan Day's tone in his press conference, I know they won 45-12. I know the stats looked largely good. There was an edginess, and for a win that was never in doubt, there was a little extra time before he came up into this room, and I would imagine that there was a lengthier conversation, just my guess, in the locker room postgame. So, look, a good day for the Buckeyes. The offense looked really, really good. The defense largely looked good, and they obviously had some fun highlight plays for sure. I don't want to overlook the fact that they came away with a 45-12 win, and now through 2 games, they've given up 1 touchdown in 8 quarters. That's really impressive. I'm not that concerned about the fact that they haven't forced a turnover yet through 2 games. But there is some substantial room for growth, and I think the Buckeyes will be focused because they know they really only have one more shot here out of conference, where they're going to play a team that they can walk into that game and they're going to be more talented, and they're going to win one-on-ones on the outside, and Marvin Harrison could do next week what he did today too.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here, because I ran a story earlier today talking about because Ohio State, played Arkansas State for the first time.
Yep.
So there's 39 other teams that Ohio State has not played, and they will play, Southern Miss, Western Kentucky, UConn over the next couple of years. So of the other, we'll say 35 teams, which team would you like to see Ohio State play?
Ooh. I don't know.
I'll let you think about it.
Yeah. I don't know. You tell me.
I would probably say, and this would have to deal with like a little bit of, scheduling manipulation. I would do a 2-for-1 with Boise State.
Ooh, that'd be fun.
Boise State comes here twice, and we go and watch them on the blue turf.
I love that. I don't know that the Buckeyes would ever realistically entertain going to Boise, but Buckeye Nation would travel. That'd be kind of fun. Go check out the blue turf. I'm going to pull it up just so that I have the full list in front of me.
Because most of it's going to be, the group of 5 kind of teams, because I think it was only Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Iowa State, Baylor, I believe, is the other Power 5 schools.
Iowa State, Kansas, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Those are the Power 5 conference schools that Ohio State hasn't played.
Nobody in Mississippi. That would be fun, though. I think. Yeah, it would be kind of fun to the Grove. Seeing that,
I don't know. Iowa State would be fun. I'm trying to think of the teams that are on this list that are regularly good that could be a fun game, because a lot of them, Ohio State would probably smack Middle Tennessee and North Texas and UTEP and Ball State and right on down.
They do have.
This is weird. I have a soft spot for Nevada. I wouldn't want to do a home and home with them. But I've been on Nevada's campus before in Reno, and it's pretty scenic. It's very cool. Their program's not great, but there's the answer to your question. If it's not Iowa State, it'd be Nevada.
We could take a short trip to Lake Tahoe from Reno,
which is awesome. This is your unofficial. I'm not sponsored to tell you that Lake Tahoe is the place, but that's a spot. It is an awesome, awesome trip. Yep. All right, we've gotten off topic, and it's time to wrap up our incident analysis. Thanks for hanging out with us. Look, the Buckeyes 45-12. It's a good day. It's a reason to celebrate tonight. The team is 2-0, and that means they got a chance to go 3-0, and their goals are very much still in front of them. That's most important. Let's not forget that they played pretty well, but I am very, very anxious to see how things go this week and what the output looks like next weekend, because that's going to tell me a lot about the mental stamina of this team. They've got some things to clean up.
Excellence is what Ryan Day says. So I think
all the time.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. For Andrew Lind, I'm Brendan Gulick. Thanks for joining us on Buckeye Breakdown. As always, you can watch these live when we stream these after the games are over, but they're available also wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We love to bring you video content on a daily basis and would appreciate your support there. We'll see you again soon. Talk to you tomorrow with or Monday morning, depending on when you check in with us again for our Upon Further Review podcast after we have a chance to watch the tape and dive in. Okay, we'll see you soon. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the weekend.